Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper and Nate Slack with you. Big thanks again to Hank Bachmeyer for joining the show. Good stuff from Hank, and he brought it up, Nate. Next week, BYU and Texas Tech, possibly College Game Day. Even Kirk Herbstreit today on ESPN. They were at Utah-Cincinnati when they were talking about the Texas Tech-Kansas State game, which is taking place today, kickoff at 1:30. Basically hinting that if Texas Tech wins, it sounds like College Game Day is going to Lubbock next week for BYU and Texas Tech. If that happens and College Game Day does show up to Lubbock, what does that add to that matchup, narrative, everything for BYU going into that game next week?
I mean, that's huge. Like, for one thing, I think it creates a margin for error. So if you lose that game, and it's on a big stage. It's a big game. It's going to be on ABC or ESPN. We'll see what.
Probably ABC if Tech wins, you would think. Because then you're talking maybe a Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit game to just make it easy for those guys to call that one. I don't know if they're contracted to call an SEC game, but it feels like it'd probably be a network TV spot.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And so I think that helps. I mean, when is the last time BYU got credited for having a quality loss? I can't think of a time BYU's ever had that. But I think it could help the guys feel maybe a little more relaxed in that sense. But they've played really well on big stages the last couple of years. And so I think, especially coming out of a bye week, hopefully they're a little more refreshed. Texas Tech, interestingly enough, is going to be in the same situation BYU was in last week, where they're playing on 6 consecutive games without a bye. BYU is going to be coming off of a bye. Granted, it's a home game for them, so maybe a little bit easier on the body just because you're not traveling. But I think BYU is going to come out guns a-blazing, and I don't think they really have a lot to lose. I mean, maybe when you look at the rankings aspect of it, but if you're not expecting, BYU is going to be an underdog. Like we basically already know that. BYU is going to be probably a touchdown underdog.
Sign us up for that.
So BYU is going to be an underdog, and everybody's going to be expecting BYU to lose. And if they have, Patrick Mahomes there because the Chiefs are going to be on a bye, they'll probably have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes there, and it'll make a big scene. And I'm sure you'll have a ton of Texas Tech fans there throwing their tortillas because they can't during the game. But sign me up, man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I cannot wait for that game. It's going to be such a good game, regardless of what happens today for Texas Tech and Kansas State. Obviously, if Tech wins, it just ramps up the stakes to where it better be a top 10 game. It better be a top 10 game. The playoff committee better put these teams in the top 10. That's all I ask, because BYU and Tech, I think also, not only this year, but in the years to come, I think BYU and Texas Tech have the potential to be the best programs year after year in the Big 12. I really do. I think that the way that these programs are investing, Texas Tech is on a whole different level than even BYU. When you look at their facilities, their investment to football and their rosters, the money that they're throwing out. But also, too, BYU's highly invested, too. And we know that, and we're seeing growth in BYU sports. And I just think BYU football, I love how they're wired. I thought Hank Bachmeyer had some great insight there to the advice that he would give Bear, but obviously pointing to what Kalani has said as well to the team, staying humble. And I'd like to think that last year's failures for the guys that are returning, paired up with the new guys, like Bear has seen his brother go through highs of highs, starting 7-0, and then being picked apart by media and by fans. This team should stay grounded. I like to think that's not going to get to their head this year. I'd like to think that last year's team, the guys that are returning, are like, we have accomplished nothing. This could change in a hurry, because you could see, I don't think it's possible. I should say it's not possible. I don't think it'll happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could lose the next 3. It could happen. So this season could change in a hurry, quick. You could go from 8-0 to 8-3, and you're like, oh, this is kind of a lackluster game to close out the season against UCF. So, got to stay grounded. I think this team will, and I think they're going to put their best foot forward, regardless of who's out there in personnel-wise against Texas Tech. And I think these two programs could be annual contenders on a regular basis in the Big 12 with the way that they're invested into their programs.
not even just contenders, like maybe rivals. I mean,
Potentially.
There's been a bit of chippiness between BYU and Texas Tech on the basketball court. You go back to 2023 with the spit thing with
Spitgate,
spitting in Tyler Batty's face, leading to an ejection. I mean, there's been some bad blood between these two teams, which is funny because before joining the Big 12 Conference, BYU and Texas Tech had never played. Like, it had been
no history.
Yeah, none at all. So it's kind of crazy that this is all of a sudden, and maybe in 3 years, maybe turned into a little bit of a rivalry. But going forward, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the NIL piece. If you look at NIL and see what programs have benefited the most from it, I think BYU and Texas Tech are two of the schools towards the top of that list. So it's going to be super fun to see where those teams go on their trajectories, but I don't think there's any reason to believe that they can't be competitive in the Big 12 going forward.
A lot of Cougar fans are going to be watching that Texas Tech Kansas State game again that kicks off at 1:30. So listen to us and maybe have that as a second screen, like watching that game while you listen to us here on the airwaves. But I think that's a massive game next week. Again, regardless of what Texas Tech ends up doing today, hopefully they win. So then it sets up College Game Day, because the last time BYU had College Game Day, you got to go back to Coastal Carolina, 2020.
Yeah.
And College Game Day games have not been kind to BYU. 2004 Utah, 2009 TCU in Provo, 2020 Coastal Carolina. Those are all L's. So maybe that's not the recipe for success. But hey, I'm speaking it into existence that this is going to be a new look BYU. This is a new era. This is the Bear Force One. I should have brought that up to Hank.
We should have.
I should have brought that up. Bear Force One's a great name. Anyway, let's take a break. Hour number 2, a guy that knows a lot about ball on the hardwood, Fran Fraschilla, the voice of the Big 12, coming up next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.